genre.
Long Way Around, the weekly podcast. We review, discuss, and recap every episode of Doctor Who, one doctor at a time. I'm Scott Corelli.
I'm Cassandra Fredrickson.
And I'm Nick Jimenez.
And today on the show, we will be discussing the Sontaran experiment, which is the fourth Doctor's third story. So some background on the Sontaran experiment and why this episode is presumably so short. Which you guys are probably not used to during Classic Who. So the first thing for background for the Sontaran experiment, previous to now, to this season, which is the first season being story edited by Robert Holmes, previous to then, all episodes of Doctor Who were 4 to 6 parters for like a long time. Like 7 years or something like that. Everything was 4 to 6 parters. Robert Holmes hated 6-parters or longer episodes because he felt that they very rarely warranted the length, and he liked tighter episodes. So rather than have 2 6-parters, because he had an idea for a solid 6-parter that used, every part of the buffalo, as the case may be. He did not want to have a second 6-parter. So instead of having a second 6-parter, with this season being, I believe it would have been 2 6-parters. No. Yeah, 2 6-parters and 2 4-parters, I think is what it would have ended up being. Yeah. Instead of doing that, he took one of the 6-parters and split it off, making a 4-parter, which became the Ark in Space, and a 2-parter, which became the Sontaran experiment. It was sort of the first time Doctor Who had done this since The Rescue in 1964. So it'd been a long time since they had done a 2-parter. And so he was going to try it out. And he did the Ark in Space, and the way that he was going to try this out was that in order to save money, he was like trying to figure out ways to save money on the budget, because one of the reasons that Doctor Who did this, had the 4 and 6-parters, is because you only have to have resources for one story. Every time you write a new story of Doctor Who, you have to recreate a lot of things. You have to build sets, you have to create costumes for your villains, and you have to design spaceships and all sorts of things. Whereas if you if you can subtract one of those out, then you don't have to build as many things, and things are cheaper, and that's better. So that's the reason why they were always doing 4 and 6-parters, and why 2-parters weren't seen as financially responsible. So Robert Holmes tried to create a way to make it financially responsible by having the 4-parter all on sets and his 2-parter on location. So they didn't really have to do anything. They would just go to a place with a camera, shoot the episode, and be done with it. And so that's what they planned on doing. And in fact, he even shared the director with Ark in Space. So the Ark in Space was directed by Rodney Bennett, and he went on to direct this episode as well. And so by sharing the director and splitting off the studio and location time, he saved a lot of money and got the 2-parter approved. For the 2-parter, he hired Bob Baker and Dave Martin, who had written The Three Doctors back in season 10, 2 years ago, the 10th anniversary special. And he gave them this and told them that it had to be on location only, and it had to feature the Sontarans because the Sontaran suits that they created for the first Sontaran story last season were expensive, and so he wanted to get some extra use out of them. Another, money saving opportunity by like reusing costumes instead of having to create something new. So they went about writing an episode called The Destructors, which was a 2-part Sontaran episode. And everything seemed to be going pretty well. One of the things that's different in their draft of this is that Earth was more of a post-apocalyptic wasteland, a la like Planet of the Apes, where there was actually going to be there's that sort of runaway, like small, like just kind of like thrown off joke about Piccadilly Square and how they're like in the middle of downtown and they're just like, aha, you're hilarious, and you can't tell if the doctor's joking or not. Mm-hmm. In the original script, that joke is there and he's not joking, and in fact they go downtown and it's like a wasteland and there's all this Piccadilly Square iconography everywhere, kind of like the Statue of Liberty at the end of Planet of the Apes. Spoilers for Planet of the Apes, I guess.
It's kind of overly ambitious on their part, I think.
Yeah, I would say so.
Like what in the show's now decade-long history made them think that they would be capable of doing that?
I don't know. So Robert Holmes got their script back. He liked part 1. He kept most of that. And then he heavily rewrote part 2 and changed the title from The Destructors to the Sontaran Experiment, which Baker and Martin were not happy with because it ruined their one and only cliffhanger. Which is really funny.
I was wondering about that. That's really funny.
Yeah. So then that happened. Another thing that happened.
It'd be like if they called the first Avengers movie like The Rise of Thanos.
Right. So the other thing that happened was that Kevin Lindsay, who played a Sontaran in the previous episode with the Sontarans, he came back to play the Sontaran in this episode, Steyer, but he had a heart condition and requested that the costume be redone so that he could breathe better and see better and walk around better, and it would be like less ridiculously, disgustingly hot. And so they found they scrounged together the budget to do that, and he got a brand new costume for Steyer, the Sontaran. And then 6 months later actually died of his heart condition, unfortunately.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he was only this was like one of the last things he did, Kevin Lindsay, before dying. Also
Pour one out for Kevin Lindsay.
Yeah. Also in this story,
Tom
Baker slipped on wet grass and cracked his collarbone, and was rushed to the hospital. And for the remainder of the story, his like collar, it's not a cast. I don't know what you would call that thing that you put on when you break your collar. But it was hidden by his scarf, which was a happy accident. That was already part of his costume. But you'll notice that his clothes are quite a bit baggier in this story than other ones, and that's to hide his injury. And also anytime he is in action, he is shot from behind or from far away. And that is because his stunt double for the episode, who played one of the dudes who first spot the doctor, one of the sniper guys, mm-hmm. He actually played the doctor in all the far away shots and from behind because Tom Baker couldn't lift his arm. He wasn't allowed to because of his cracked collarbone. And then finally, the last bit of material is that Rodney Bennett, who had a whole other story to edit with the Ark in Space, decided that rather than shoot this on film, which was what you would normally do with exterior stuff, location shooting, you shoot that on film, and then everything on set you shoot with the broadcast video cameras. Instead of shooting it on film, he actually brought in outside broadcast video cameras because he wanted the editing process to be easier. And as a result of doing this, the OB video cameras couldn't, they were not capable of color separation overlay, which is how they would do a lot of the effects that they would do, such as our big friendly robot in Robot. All that stuff was done through color separation overlay, and you can't do that on OB video. You can only do that on film. And so because of that, they had the additional expense of building the robot that floats around. They had to build like a practical version and fly it around practically because they couldn't use the color separation overlay to do it with a miniature, which is what was budgeted. So the story did go over budget a little bit between building a new costume, which they weren't supposed to do, and building a full-size drone thing that they weren't supposed to do. It did go a little over budget, but it was still a super cheap episode overall. And that's the background for the Sontaran experiment. More than I would have thought there would have been.
Yeah.
Being just like a simple two-parter and everything. But yeah. And it makes sense that Baker and Martin were heavily rewritten in part 2, because I find that this episode makes way more sense than most of their stories and is in general more interesting and enjoyable than most of their stories. They're not the best. Not the worst. Not the worst. There are worse than them. But they're up there. There's another writing team that are much worse than they are.
They're not Underworld, are they?
Are they?
I thought they were.
Are they Underworld, or what about Pip and Baker? Right?
No, they are not Underworld.
Okay, they're the they're the worst in my opinion.
Oh God, no, I can't stand these guys.
Oh, Baker and Martin. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think this was so bad. And I don't mind the Three Doctors at all. So
I believe Time Monster is them. And the Mutants, which is awful.
Right.
I can't remember.
I think as far as bad writers for this show, I don't think, I mean, they're down there, but I don't consider them the worst. I think it's Pip and Baker, right? Is the other one other writing team?
Pip and Jane, they're married. Right,
Pip and Jane. Yeah. They're really, really bad. We've already had to watch one of their episodes, and it was awful. It was an awful, terrible experience. So anyway, so that's the background on the Sontaran experiment.
I'm fascinated to get a look at this somehow worse looking Sontaran costume.
It's a really great story. The time.
Well, it ended up in death, so I mean, it.
Oh, this one. Okay.
Oh no, I'm saying the original one. I'm interested to see what that would look like.
Oh, the original one. Yeah, the original one was weird because the original one, the Sontarans spoke with their tongues, and so it was just like,
yeah,
it's like a really immovable Sontaran costume with a hole in the mouth, and then the actors use their tongues to talk, like
that weird video of Gary Johnson.
Yeah. Like imagine that, but like a potato head.
So Gary Johnson.
Yeah. Only no hair, but yeah. That's also that's a Robert Holmes story, and it's really good, and also the introduction of Sarah Jane. Yeah, so it's a really good one when we get to it eventually, but we got a few years. So let's talk about part one. Nick, take it away.
I would love to, Scott.
All
right. So the Doctor and Sojourn and her good friend Harry.
Sojourn? What?
Yeah, Sojourn Smurth. They transmit.
Sojourn.
They transmit down to space station Nerva, which I'm actually saying right. To as we said earlier, is an empty field that is supposed to be Trafalgar Square. So the Doctor starts repairing circles on the transmat refractors with a sonic screwdriver. While and there's this really funny bit where, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't Sarah Jane transmat like upside down into the ground?
Yes.
Yeah, and like on a hill, and so like for some reason Sarah can't stand up while laying downhill. I don't like it was.
Yeah, this episode isn't big on dignity, Sarah Jane wise.
No. Although I really like that joke where Harry's just like the Doctor just dives into being like, oh, what are these weird balls hanging out in this field? Let me check this out. And Harry's like, I mean, you look really busy and I don't mean to bother you, but do you notice that it was just us that teleported here? And Doctor's like, huh? He's like, well, like, where's Sarah? And he goes, Sarah. And you just hear like screaming. Like, just like, ah! And he's like, that sounds like Sarah. And he's like, okay, I'll go check it out.
Yeah, like that doesn't even turn around or stop what he's doing.
Yeah, it's really good.
I also love her yellow raincoat.
Yeah, she's fisherman Sarah with highlighter boots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? In the best way possible, Sarah Jane a lot of the time dresses like Charlize Theron's character in Arrested Development.
Oh no.
Again, in the best way possible.
Mr. F.
Mr. F. Love indubitably. So they get Sarah off the hill. I don't know. And they walk across the plain of Trafalgar Square, and Sarah hears a weird sound and a movement that seems to be coming from on top of the hill. Aries like, but
what? He's very proper and very like upper crust. Like, why? Why do you make him sound like he just stepped out of an alley in like 1880s London?
It sounds
covered
Ben,
in soot.
It sounds like Ben having a stroke.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I was getting my Bens and my my Harrys mixed up. So they find two men in spacesuits named Eric and Zake.
Yeah.
They pronounce it. They don't pronounce it Iraq, do they? Because it's spelled E-R-A-K, but I think they call him just Eric. It's kind of like that one Lannister whose name is like, what's his name? Keith.
It's not. Is it Eric? Was it Eric?
I think it was Eric. Yeah.
Like Iraq? I don't remember.
Yeah. He drives in Iraq. Sorry. And so they're observing the Doctor through the crosshairs of their rifle. Iraq leaves Zake to go check up on the Doctor while he reports the presence of the Doctor to another guy in a spacesuit whose name is Crans, who's tending to a campfire. While that's going on, Harry slips on the edge of a hole and tumbles into it. So he's stuck. He can't climb out.
Oh, that's my favorite. That's my favorite shot in this whole two-parter. Is just that like you see him fall, and Sarah goes over to the edge of the hole and is like, Harry, and then you just go to him, and he's just unconscious, sprawled out at the bottom of the hole.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
So, like, they've done nothing so far but wander around a field, and they've both already, like, been, like, incapacitated.
Well, I mean, Sarah literally came on the scene incapacitated.
That's true. She kind of set off on the wrong foot. It's like when you are playing Mario Kart and you like overshoot the engine right at the start of the race, and then you're like spinning in a circle.
Yeah, it's exactly like that.
Yeah. So Zeke is observing the doctor, but that's interrupted by a strange floating robot. So Zeke runs away. It's a pretty good looking robot as far as Doctor Who is concerned, I think.
It looks like, because it's a cool looking robot, because it kind of looks like an alien with like eye stalks and like a Fu Manchu, like catfish, like whiskers.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a crab.
Yeah, or like a catfish.
Yeah, like a catfish crab. It's cool.
Yeah, it looks like it would have a funny voice if it could talk.
Yeah.
So
I feel like it would sound like Admiral Akbar.
Hello. Hello, Zeke.
What are you doing?
Okay. So Zeke falls off a cliff.
For no reason. And he doesn't fall off a cliff, he jumps off a cliff.
Yeah, there's a lot of falling and tripping in this episode with very serious consequences.
There's nothing else going on. I mean,
yeah. So then Eric and
imagine if this was 4 parts.
Oh my
god.
There would be a whole part of just Harry and Sarah Jane is like bombing around the field. Yeah. I don't think this.
There'd probably be a whole episode of him in the hole and her trying to get him out of the hole.
Yeah, him falling into the hole would have been a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
By the way, I need to remember to always listen to Classic Who with headphones on, because that theme song drives my dog like nanas.
That's amazing.
Because it's just this piercing siren.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Anyway, yeah. So Eric and Crayons find Zake's body.
Crayons.
Crayons. I like the idea of an alien guy named Crayons. So they're like, oh no, like that weird guy killed Zeke. So they stun him with their rifles before he can explain that it was a catfish robot. And so they carry the doctor away, but there's another spaceman watching them. And as we learn later on, his name is Roth. So Sarah gets back to the circle, sees the doctor's gone, leaves his screwdriver's on the ground, and she's like, well, that's not like him. So Sarah returns to the hole. Harry's gone, and something has started throwing rocks down at Harry, and he's like scrambling for cover. He's found the way out of the hole. He's climbing through some rocks. Sarah's about to climb down into the hole to look for Harry, but then she's grabbed by Roth as that weird catfish robot flies past. So Roth's like, I'm Roth. Sarah's like, okay. Why are you throwing rocks at people? And he's like, I'm trying to trap that robot. It's a drone. And then he's like, hey, that alien, I mean, that robot works for an alien who lives in the rocks. And he's like torturing and killing all of us one by one. And so he's like, hella, he's really like Ben gunning pretty hard at this point. And you could tell that he's seen a lot of serious crap go down. So he's like, they're not taking me alive. And he's like, well, maybe my friends can help you. And then he's like, oh, your friends. I wonder if it was that guy that was taken to the campsite by Eric and Crayons. Meanwhile, at the campsite, they're like, that thing where they're trying to figure out who the doctor is because they think that he's like an enemy combatant. And the doctor's like, I'll never tell.
There's this amazing part in that where the doctor, because they like zap him unconscious and take him to their campsite, and They lay him on the ground, walk away, and then they're like, so when do you think he's going to wake up? And the doctor starts waking up, and he's like, I guess it'll be now. I'm not kidding you guys, like listening if you haven't seen this. That whole thing that I just said takes place over the course of about 5 seconds. So they bring him in, sit him down, walk away. When do we think he's going to wake up? The doctor wakes up, and then they go back over to the doctor.
Yeah.
Like, it's the worst blocking maybe I've ever seen. And Dr. Classic Who is pretty well known for bad blocking in general. But then the icing on the cake is when the doctor wakes up and he tells, I don't know the difference between E-Rock and Kronz, but
it doesn't matter.
Okay, so I'm going to assume E-Rock is the boss and Kronz is the lackey guy. So sure. E-Rock tells Kronz to untie the doctor but keep his hands tied. So Kronz goes over, he pulls out his big machete, he goes over to the doctor's feet, and he leans over the doctor's feet and starts sawing his arm back and forth, but then you can obviously see him untying with the other hand the rope, and then pulls the ropes off and then puts the machete away like it's a job well done. And I'm just like, that was awful. Like it was like magically bad. Like I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Just obviously untying with one hand while miming cutting the rope with the other. Like they couldn't afford extra rope, so he couldn't cut through it in case they needed another take.
That's amazing.
It's a cheap story is what I'm saying.
Doctor Who, everybody.
It's a cheap story. Amazing. Anyway, do you guys did either of you notice that?
No, I didn't catch that.
Oh God, it's magical. Anyway, continue.
Yeah. So the doctor's like, I'm from Vera. And they're like, that's stupid because Vera is not real. It's like Atlantis. And he's like, we're from the colony of Galsec. And the doctor's like, that's a no-looking button. And he identifies it as non-human technology, and it's like a remote camera. So that means it's somewhere else. Everything they're doing is being observed by some kind of gray, potato-shaped figure.
I will say, I really like that despite the Ark in Space and Sontaran Experiment originally being a 6-parter that was split into 2 stories, it's still sort of one story because the space station Nerva is the space station from the Ark in Space, and they all think of it as Atlantis because it was lost in space for so long, which is, part of the story of Ark in Space. So I like all of that connective tissue that's going on there because you don't get a lot of that in Classic Who normally. And so it's interesting to see so much continuity between 2 stories.
Yeah, I kind of wish there was more Nerva in this episode.
Yeah.
Because it kind of that's kind of where it stops.
Yeah, sure. But it's more than usual with Classic Who. So
yeah,
I like it.
Yeah. So the potato's watching them. Roth brings Sarah near the campsite, but he's like, I'm not getting close to that campsite. So I saw Viral go down to the rocks, and the alien let Viral go. So the men from Galsec, Krampus and Eric, tell the doctor that one of their freighters has gone missing, and so they got a distress signal. And she goes, "Oh, so you're with the military?" And they're like, "Whatever." So our ship got vaporized. 9 of us are stranded out here, and now we're just being vanished. We're just like disappearing one by one. It's like Predator, and he's like, "What's Predator?" And they're like, "It's not important." So the doctor's like, well, I'll fix your transmat refractor for a price.
I honestly, Nick, I'll be honest. I really cannot wait. I mean, one of the reasons that I'm so excited to be doing this show with you is because I can't wait for 2 years from now when you have mastered all of the classic Doctor's impressions.
Oh my God.
And you're just nailing all of them.
Yeah.
It'll be
nice.
It'll be a great day.
Someday. So Verl's like, we're not taking orders from you old people. And he's like, what does that mean? So while the Nervans did nothing but sleep for like thousands of years, the rest of mankind spread all across the galaxy and built like an empire. So that's kind of what's been going on in the mythology of the Nervaverse, whatever, if you want to call it that, the Nerva era. So Roth appears, and then the three spacemen are like, oh my God, it's Roth. And they start chasing him. And then Snera
seeks.
Yeah. Sneaks out of the rocks and frees the Doctor. So Roth manages to escape from
I really like that moment because the Doctor, she comes out and she helps him, and she comes like walking down like some rocks and she helps him out and is like, come on. And the Doctor asks her a question. I think he's basically just like, who? Oh yeah. He says, who's your friend? And she says, I'll explain later, which is great because you always see the Doctor saying, I'll explain later to the companions, but you very rarely see the companions saying, I'll explain later to the Doctor.
Yeah, it's great. It's a nice little, So the Roth meets up with Sarah and the Doctor. She's like, this is the Roth. And there's
can you smell what the Roth
is cooking? And so they tell him about the catfish robot, and the Doctor's like, look at this weird residue on the ground. It seems to be some kind of evidence of a Terulian drive, but there's no Terulian in this galaxy. Curious. So he's like, well, there must be some way out of the hole that Harry fell in. But as they climb down, he falls, losing consciousness. And
because that's apparently just how you get into that hole is you fall and lose consciousness. Like he was trying to get in the hole and he still fell and lost consciousness.
It's like the platform at 9 3/4. You have to just run head first into the wall. You just have to tumble down.
Yeah. Or it's like a video game where it's like a video game where like you have to lose some health by jumping down into the hole,
you have to,
no matter what. Yeah. So then at that moment, the catfish robot returns and captures Roth and Sarah. Meanwhile, Harry is up into the hills doing hill things where he spots a weird metal sphere among the rocks. And so he's watching, and then a robot, the catfish robot, arrives with Roth and Sarah. The ship's door opens, and to Sarah's utter terror and horror, the alien takes off his helmet and reveals that he is a Sontaran.
He is a potato.
He is, and always will be, a potato. And
dumb potato.
Yeah, dumb, weird potato that can't talk right.
And has he shown off his gun? Does he show off his gun in that?
No. You literally, it ends with him. It actually ends like seconds after taking off the helmet.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. A lot of falling into holes. Everybody got a turn. To fall down in a field or a hole. It's fine. It's fine. Part one is fine, but there's no real plot really, other than like Nick suggested, it was basically the plot of The Predator, but in a field, instead of the jungle.
Right.
And you never see the Predator until the end, and the Predator is a potato.
Yeah, and not scary or cool at all.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Part one's fine. But part 2, I will say that I actually quite like part 2. So tell us about it, Cass.
All right. So,
tell us about it, Cass.
Sarah recognizes that it is a Sontaran, and she thinks it's the Sontaran from her first encounter with the Sontarans because he looks exactly the same. But he is in fact not Lynx the Sontaran. He is Styr of the Sontaran G3 military.
Okay, so I love this for multiple things. I have a lot to say about this first interaction.
Okay.
Because so number one, from the meta standpoint, the creators are worried that anyone is going to recognize Kevin Lindsay as the Sontaran Lynx. So they make sure that Sarah recognizes it, points this out, and they cover their ass. Yes. Ridiculous, but fine. Honorable. However, in the context of the story, it just looks like a Sontaran. So I love the fact that, in a way, the show is calling all of us racist because Sarah, because Sarah's like, no, you look the same as that one particular Sontaran.
Same ugly, stupid face.
Yeah, and we're all just like, I mean, it just looks like a Sontaran. I don't know what you're talking about. So I just love that Sarah can tell the distinct difference between Sontaran clone models. Respect Sarah Jane. Respect. I love Sarah Jane so much. Anyway.
I'm surprised that she even remembers the name of that Sontaran.
I know.
Because I don't. Granted.
Well, to be fair, it was the first alien she had ever seen.
That's true.
Yeah, you usually don't forget stuff like that.
You never forget your first alien.
Yeah.
I like her spiel, though. She's like, it's impossible. You were destroyed in the 13th century, which is like the most Doctor Who thing I've ever heard in my life. And I like how he knows exactly what she's talking about. Or if he doesn't, he just goes with it. He's like, yeah, no, we're clones. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not, yeah. So he explains that.
Are they mentioned? Do they mention that they're clones in the Time Warrior? Or is this the first part of that? And is the reason that Sontarans are clones is just because they recast the same guy and we're planning on using the same costume?
I don't believe that, because there's only the one Sontaran in that story, so you wouldn't say that they were clones. There's no reason to.
Right.
I don't remember. Honestly, the only thing I really remember from that story is the courtyard scene, but we'll get to that eventually.
Oh God, it's amazing. It's the most Doctor Who thing ever because it's not dissimilar to the regeneration thing, where it's like they just invented that because they needed to recast the role.
Right.
And here they invent the fact that the Sontarans are a race of clones just because they were planning on reusing the same costume. Incredible.
It's so good.
Anyway.
So he's with the military because all Sontarans are with the military, and his job is to survey Earth. So Roth freaks out and he's like, you'll never take me. And so Styr takes out his gun, and there's this really great shot of him like with the gun close up, and then he's all kind of blurry, and he's aiming for Roth as he's running away. And the gun looks like a ping pong ball stuck to the end of a water gun.
Or basically, I thought a hot glue gun. Yeah.
Yeah. And the ping pong ball lights up when he shoots it, and it makes a silly noise.
It's beautiful. It's the most half-assed thing I've ever. It's amazing. I love it so much.
Props did not have time for that today.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say props to the props department.
Yeah, props for props.
So he's running, Steyer shoots him, Roth dies, and Sarah screams because that's what Sarah does in this episode. And there's that really great line where he's just like, "Why are you making that disagreeable noise?" Which it's like, well, you just murdered this guy. So meanwhile, our three spacemen from, is it Galsec? They find the doctor in the hole. The doctor's climbing out of the hole, and he hears people approaching, and he's like, "Sarah?" And it's these three guys. So they like force him to climb out, and they also have silly ping pong ball guns. And the catfish robot shows up behind them, and it grabs all of them the way that it grabbed Sarah and Roth. And the doctor just like quietly just slides back into the bottom of the hole, and he finds the same area that Harry crawled through, and Harry's just hanging out on the rocks. He finds another spaceman chained there, and like Harry is a doctor, or he's supposed to be a doctor, but he doesn't really check the guy out like a doctor would. Like, like a medical doctor. Like, if you were a medical doctor and you saw this guy strung up by his wrists and he was dehydrated, like, wouldn't you like do something about it?
Well, he listens to his heart, and I think he's dead. So he just like, oh well. Well,
no, because he asks for water, and then Harry's like,
does he?
Yeah, and then Harry's like, okay, and then he never comes back to him. Oh. So Steyer, he ties Sarah up to his rock fortress, and there's like this, it looks like a reflector button from like a bicycle, like one of those like red reflector things, with like aluminum foil taped to the back of it. So he places it on her forehead, and there's this force field around her. And so Steyer goes to this other station, and it's got like a TV screen, and he reports to his superior, the marshal, and the marshal's not really impressed. He's really impatient. He's like, "Where's your report?" And he's just like, "Well, I still have to conduct these experiments, so it'll be a little while." And so Steyer, he goes to experiment on Sarah, and he's like, "All right, well, let's see how well she does resisting fear." So the weird bicycle aluminum foil thing on her head makes her start to hallucinate, I guess. And
like Jonathan Crane style, Scarecrow.
Yeah, but like no fear gas. There's like a snake, and I don't know why she's afraid of the like rocks teetering over her. I missed that one. And then there's like this weird mud bubble wrap stuff that starts to like eat her from her foot. And I think it's supposed to be quicksand, but it looks like gross, wet sewage bubble wrap.
I mean, I would be scared of that too. So
it's like the stuff that literally, it's what I think of when you say like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like, it's that weird stuff that just turns people into like X-Men or whatever. So she's like freaking out, and the doctor sees her, and he's trying to say like, "Oh no, it's not real, fight it with Sarah," but she's like losing her mind. So he uses the sonic screwdriver to break. There's like this metal grate built into one of the rocks that's powering the force field. So he uses that and breaks it, and then he like takes the bicycle aluminum thing off of her head, and she yells and falls unconscious, as women do on Doctor Who. And the doctor kind of turns around, and the Sontaran's there, so he like lunges for the Sontaran, but then like he kind of like pushes the doctor away, and then the doctor like makes to run, but then Steyer shoots him with the same gun that killed our friend Roth. So the doctor's dead. Wink, wink. So I don't know what Steyer is doing in the meantime, because Harry, like, he just abandons Sarah because Harry finds Sarah and he sees the doctor and they're like, oh, they're both dead. But again, Harry's a medical doctor. You should, like, check their pulse. That's the first thing you do when you find an unconscious body.
Did he know that? Did we know that as a species at the time, though?
You'd think, like, in the 70s.
Right. I'm not totally sure, because what he does is he walks up to her and lifts her eyelids and, like, looks at her eyes. And I don't know. I thought that was weird too, because I was like, what is he? He's like checking to see if her eyes are rolled back in her head, and I'm like,
just worried about her, Scott.
Well, but I mean, like, what does that do? Like, what do you think she's thinking? Like, I don't understand. What are you trying to prove?
Harry's a terrible medical doctor. So
is there something with, like, how your eyes react when you have a concussion, maybe? Is that what he's checking?
I don't know. Because you know how in, like, some, like, TV shows and stuff too, they'll, like, shine a flashlight into someone's eye when they're unconscious, or
right,
checking for pupil dilation. But if you're unconscious, I don't think that happens.
Yeah, I don't know.
Whatever.
It's weird, but
Harry probably failed medical school and lied on all of his unit forms.
I mean, that's why he works at UNIT, right, and not a real hospital,
not like the British Royal Hospital or whatever.
Right.
Wouldn't that be a show?
So the poor guy strung up by his wrists, asking for water, has since died because Harry is a terrible human being. And I almost called him Strax. It's not Strax. It's Steyer.
I wish.
Steyer records the result of the experiment, and, you know, humans.
He comes walking down because like Harry goes and listens to the guy's heart, and then hears Steyer coming, so he runs around the corner, and then Steyer comes walking literally from a corner that has no possible way out.
Yeah.
Which is just like, where do you just jump down from the top? Like, I don't understand. But he comes walking in, and it's the funniest thing because he's walking very precariously over all of these, like, narrow, jagged rocks, because he can't actually, like, the actor can't see in the mask because he can't look down.
Right.
And so he's just, like, kind of, like, really precariously walking, and it takes, like, a full, like, 40 seconds to him to get over to the dehydrated body of this guy. And we're just watching Steyer just, like, precariously walk over these rocks. And I'm like, cut later. Like, what are you... we don't need to see all this.
Again, like, what if this was 6 parts?
Oh, my God.
We watch his entire journey. Incredible.
It's like 20 minutes.
Journey with him.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. So Steyer is checking on the body of this guy and recording his findings in his little alien tape recorder. And Harry is kind of crouching behind a rock, ready to pounce on him, but the doctor kind of pulls him back. And I don't remember if the doctor also covers Harry's mouth, but because I know that random guy covers Sarah's mouth earlier. Mm-hmm. But I guess the reason that the doctor is alive is because Steyer's ping pong glue gun instead shot a piece.
I love the idea that it just is a glue gun, and it just got the ping pong ball stuck to the end of it because of the glue.
Like, crap.
Anyway, go ahead.
So he shot instead a piece of scrap metal that the doctor just had in his pocket, I guess. And there's this really funny exchange where the doctor is looking for his like diary to see what notes he has on the Sontarans, and he's like, "We'll never throw anything away, Harry." And then he's like patting down his pockets, and then he's just like, "Never overcrowd your pockets." And so I thought that was really funny. So the doctor tells Harry to look after Sarah, and he goes off and is going to try and figure out what Steyer's up to. So the catfish robot brings the R3 spaceman to the Sontaran ship, and it turns out that Verl, their leader, the one that Doctor was like, oh, that's a weird little button on your shirt there, he had tried to make a deal with the Sontaran in exchange for his own life at the expense of his crewmen. But Steyer, instead, he's just like, well, you're a scumbag because you're a traitor to your own race, so I'm going to experiment on you anyway, and then I'm going to kill all of you, as Sontarans do. So he, it's really messed up, actually. So he has this big metal bar, and I guess it's like some kind of gravity thing, so he can control the gravity of the object, which makes no sense, but whatever, it's Doctor Who. So Eric and Kranz are each holding this metal bar above their leader's chest, and then he is increasingly making it heavier. So they're literally like straining to hold it up above this guy's chest to keep from like crushing his like rib cage, and which is really dark. So this keeps happening, and you think the guy's gonna die, and then Steyer gets a call from his superior, and he's just like, okay, I'll come back to you guys later. So he like turns it off, or he like keeps it going, and then he runs over to the TV screen to go report to his superior, and the superior's like, we need to hurry up, the whole fleet's waiting, the whole invasion's counting on you. And he's just like, well, hang on, I have like 2 more experiments, it's fine. So the doctor meets up again with Sarah and Harry, and he tells them that somehow the galaxy is now important to the Sontarans, so the Sontarans are going to try and like invade. So that's why this guy's here. And Steyer is supposed to figure out what humanity's weakness is, basically. So the doctor decides that he is going to challenge Steyer in single combat. And meanwhile, they're going to sabotage his ship, and hopefully this will stop the Sontarans from invading. So the doctor, shows up, and he tells him that the humans he's been experimenting on aren't actually military, that they're slaves, and he is the superior human being, and basically fight me. And so they fight. And I don't know what the doctor has. Is it like a pipe?
I couldn't figure that out either.
All
I know is for all the places where they found an additional budget for, fight choreography was not one of those things.
Because Steyer has the big machete thing, and then the doctor has a tree branch, I think, that looks like
something like that,
like a pipe. And they are like, it's supposed to be a badass sword fight, but instead it's this guy in a weird potato mask swinging a machete around while the doctor just kind of backs up ever so slightly.
Yeah. And kind of smacking the machete away every once in a while.
And then they start like wrestling. But the doctor says that Sontarans aren't used to Earth's gravity, so I guess he's going to get tired out. Which maybe accounts for his terrible fight everything, but
possibly, but it also reeks of a two-parter's like desperate need for a Deus Ex Machina.
So Harry is sabotaging the ship while this happens, and Steyer is basically like, all right, so hang on, I'm just gonna chill out in my ship for a moment, and then I'm going to come and I'm going to kill you, which makes no sense. So he goes to the ship, and Harry has come back with this gadget, this like made up computer alien piece of whatever. And then the ship starts like smoking, I guess. There's like steam or gas or something. And the doctor's like, oh, we should go. And then the Sontaran like shrinks, and then like his weird potato head deflates like a balloon, and then he explodes. I don't know why.
The gravity thing.
It kind of looks like a basketball, like a deflated basketball.
Yeah, it's the gravity thing, I think.
I don't. No, I guess they have to like plug themselves in and feed off energy or something, but the doctor says that the energy instead fed on Steyer, which makes no sense, which I guess is what Harry took out of the ship.
Because they sabotaged the machine.
Yeah. So maybe Harry like...
They reversed the polarity.
Of the neutron flow.
As one does.
Oh, man. So he's dead.
The Sontaran Experiment Part 2, also known as the Ballad of the Deflating Sontaran.
So the doctor basically goes to the transmitter to gloat, and he tells the Marshal Sontaran that since Steyer couldn't figure out or finish all of his experiments, the invasion is canceled. And okay. And then he like pulls some stuff out of his butt. He's just like, if you cross some arbitrary zone, your entire fleet's going to be destroyed. And the Marshal's like, oh, that's terrible. And the Sontarans will rise again. And then
we totally buy this.
Yeah. Click and
buy.
And then, so basically, I guess in the scuffle, the guy that was getting squished dies. So our two friends, Eric and Crayons, they all go to the circle of spheres, and the doctor and Sarah and Harry all beam back up to Nerva to let them know that there's humans down there, and that's the end of this story.
Is that the reason?
How cool would it have been if they had cut to like the Ark in space?
Is that the reason that they left the Ark, is just to see if anyone was alive on Earth?
I think they specifically went down to fix the sphere things, the transmat thing.
Oh, okay. And he fixed it, so then they were like, they went back up to the Ark, and now they're going to leave on the TARDIS from the Ark.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was weird having an episode end with them like leaving a planet, but not in the TARDIS.
Right.
Yeah.
But they do disappear, and he kind of blinks in and out as he does, so.
Mm-hmm.
Like this would be a weird first episode to watch, because it'd be like, wait, he just has the ability to just kind of phase in and out of time and space.
Yeah, and the episode ends with the doctor quoting Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Which is
Lieutenant Dan, ice cream.
No, not that quote. The deflated Sontaran throws the extra ice cream cone in a garbage can.
Oh.
I have to find Baba.
No, he essentially says life is like a transmit beam. You never know what you're going to get. And then he disappears. Like, okay, thanks, Doctor. Yeah, I like part 2 a lot. I think part 2 is really good, which makes sense.
Stuff happens.
Right. Well, and it makes sense because Robert Holmes rewrote it all. And he created the Sontarans, so he understands them and came up with cool, like, messed up stuff that Sontarans would totally do to, like, test humans.
Right.
Yeah, it's a weird episode to watch knowing that in the future, like, there's going to be, like, a really adorable, huggable Sontaran.
Uh-huh.
That, like, would be down for everything that happens in this episode, like, morally.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, what do you think of? I mean, this is your first classic Who Sontaran. What do you think of him?
Well, he was very unsettling looking. I feel bad for the actor that wore it. But it was a good performance.
Uh-huh.
And you can see why the Sontarans are still around today. Because, I mean, it is kind of like I guess it's weird. They're kind of like, the Sontarans are kind of like the Penguin of Doctor Who. Like, I don't think the Penguin is anyone's favorite Batman villain, but he is one of, like, the most well-known Batman villains.
Yeah. I mean, the argument could be made that they're the of the classic Who villains, they're the, like, fourth most iconic. Because, I mean, if you look at the if you look at the new Who, the modern Who, the first season brought in the Daleks, the second season brought in the Cybermen, the third season brought in the Master, and the fourth season introduced the Sontarans.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also weird because I'm just now realizing that they brought them all back in the order that they first appeared in the classic show as well.
Well, I mean, Autons, though.
Weird. I guess Autons were first. That's right. But then the Autons, like, never came back until, like, the very end of season 5.
That's true.
And I think a lot of, like, modern Who fans just know them as, like, the shop dummy. That's the shop dummy episode, Yeah. Because do they even really talk about them as Autons, or do they really talk about them as the living plastic and all of that stuff? What's the hive mind? The Auton hive mind? What is that called?
Oh, gosh.
Nesting consciousness, right? Yeah. I remember them saying nesting consciousness and living plastic a lot, but I don't remember in Rose them specifically calling them Autons. Not until the Big Bang, I think, is when Big Bang and
when they like name drop it.
Yeah, when they name drop Auton, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But anyway, I don't know. I like Sontarans, and I feel like we return to the well a lot with the Sontarans. Like, now they're just sort of comic relief because Moffat just thinks they're hilarious. But I feel like the Sontarans could be interesting, and I think there's a lot of ground you can cover with them, but we tend to just keep returning to the well and not really do anything different with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the first two Robert Holmes stories, this one as script editor and the previous one as writer. I like what he does with them a lot. Because I find them interesting villains, because they are sort of one-dimensional, but, like, they're one-dimensional in, like, an interesting way to me. Because they are just like, we're built for war, and that's all we care about.
We love war.
And I don't know. I find them interesting as villains against the Doctor, who is very, he's a Yeah, he's like a peacemonger, and they're warmongers.
Mm-hmm.
And
In a way,
I find that interesting.
In a way, they're kind of the Klingons of Doctor Who.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've never thought about that before.
And the Daleks are like the Borg.
Yeah.
No, Cybermen are the Borg. Yeah. The Cybermen, the Borg are literally ripoffs of the Cybermen.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but Cybermen
like literally.
The Borg are like Cybermen with like poetry.
Maybe I think you're just thinking of the Borg Queen.
I am mostly thinking of First Contact.
Yeah.
But what else is new?
Yeah, well, fair enough. So yeah, and I like that. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention was that I really like this episode for the concept of it is really, really dark. But the execution of it, it's like really dark and twisted, but the execution of it isn't so much. And I just look at this and I'm like, yeah, this is what I want dark, like messed up Doctor Who to be like, not like Attack of the Cybermen.
Right.
You know?
Sure.
Like I want that, like that scene with the big weight and the two guys like having to hold it over their friend and like try and keep it up off of his chest. Like that's messed up, but it's all sort of messed up in theory. Whereas Attack of the Cybermen is literally just like Eric Sayward just being like, hey, wouldn't it be messed up if we just crushed this dude's hands? That would be so messed up. Let's do it. Maybe we'll get in Fangoria this month.
I much prefer Robert Holmes, like dark, as opposed to Eric Sayward's dark.
Yeah. I mean, there's a sense of subtlety and what's the word I'm looking for? Class to Robert Holmes's version of like dark and twisted, whereas like Eric Sayward is just like metal.
Yeah,
like it really just feels like Eric Sayward's just like writing Doctor Who while like listening to like Ozzy Osbourne like albums and stuff.
Yeah, I think the two of them really illustrate well the difference between horror and terror.
Yes.
And horror is always more interesting.
Yeah.
Or horror and like gore or violence.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, yeah, I mean, part one is a real runaround, but part two is real good. I feel like part one is such a runaround because I think and not to give them too much credit, but I think if Bob and Dave had known that the episode was going to be called the Sontaran Experiment, I don't think that they would have felt the need to build to their stupid cliffhanger as much, and part one may have been better than it is.
Yeah.
It really just felt like a long walk to that cliffhanger.
It's not as bad as I remember it being, though.
Yeah. I mean, it's short.
Right, yeah.
It's under an hour. That's always good. So, anyway. All right. Well, in the time it took you to listen to this episode, you could have watched this story. So, there's that.
Yeah.
But now you don't have to.
Now you don't have to. Yeah, so we'll be back next week to talk about Kinda.
Yes.
Which is a Fifth Doctor story. In the meantime, you can go to our website, duelinggenre.com, where you can check out this podcast as well as all of our others, like Back to the Future Minute, which is currently on hiatus, but coming back in January with Back to the Future Part 3. That's Nick and I are on that show. Cass and Norman do Lord of the Rings Minute, which is in the midst of Fellowship of the Ring, the extended edition. So go check that out. They haven't left the Shire yet.
No.
And yeah, so go check that out. Yeah, they're 2 months in or something like that, and they haven't left the Shire yet.
Yep, 40 minutes in, we're still in the Shire.
Yeah. So Lord of the Rings Minute, check that out. Premiering tomorrow on the site is Harry Potter Minute, which has nothing to do with the three of us other than Dueling Genre is hosting the show for Gary and his co-host, who I don't know personally, so I don't remember her name. Sorry, co-host. Sorry, Gary's co-host. I can't remember. What?
No, sorry. I was joking.
Okay.
It was Bonnie Wright, the actress that plays Ginny Weasley in the Harry Potter movies.
Oh, no, I don't think so. And then go check out Geek by Night, which will be coming back this month, or probably late this month, probably like after Thanksgiving with the next episode. And go to our Patreon page, duelinggenre.com/support. If we get more TDC-centric listeners up on Patreon, we'll start doing TDC stuff on the Patreon. Right now, I think we only have one TDC person on the Patreon. So if more of you get on there and support us at the $5 level or higher, you get all the bonus stuff for all of our other shows. But we'll also start doing like a monthly like bonus Doctor Who something or other. I don't know. For TDC, but
where we review Class.
Yeah,
that's true. Maybe we could make Class like a Patreon thing. That would be fun.
Call it Classes in Session.
or maybe we could really torture ourselves and do Torchwood. Yeah, torture wood. Or I don't know, other stuff. Maybe maybe
Canine DVDs.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, you got the Canine DVDs. We've got there's plenty of short stories and stuff we could do. There's comics. There's all kinds of things we could do. Maybe we'll start covering some supplemental material over on the Patreon like once a month. If we start getting some more TDC patrons, plus as a Patreon subscriber, you can become a guest on the show, like David Jeffries did last season, and we'll probably do again.
Yeah.
Hi, David. I'm sure you're going to be back. I was actually going to ask him to be on this, and I literally just forgot with all of the hecticness going on in our lives. Truth be told, between the last episode and this one, I think it's been about 6 weeks.
What?
I think since we recorded the last one, because you like got married and everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a while.
Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been a while. Cass got married. A lot of time has passed between the recording of our last episode and this one.
Yeah.
Just a lot of stuff happened, but I'm sure David Jeffries will be back on, and if you guys want to be on the show, I recommend becoming a Patreon patron because, that's how you can be on the show. And there's a donation button on the site. If Patreon's not your thing, you can just donate to the show directly that way. You can get a TDC shirt by going to our merchandise store at TeePublic. There's a link to that on our site as well. You can email the show, contact@thedoctorscompanion.us. And we're on Twitter and Tumblr. You can like us on Facebook, leave us iTunes reviews, all that good stuff.